Is there deceit? And if so, how does it affect the elections?
If there is, I think it's probably at a small scale. Not enough to probably move the needle.
I always say politics is a blood sport.
I know you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about.
People that don't know that going into it find out really quickly.
There's no such thing as a smart city evidence. Let's stop making up stuff.
You speak up and it gets really brutal.
It sparks conversation from the public and politicians alike to come together and want something more, want something better. My approach to the thing is to be just guerrilla about it. I just made it. I printed it. I sold it.
Yeah.
I put up billboards around Salt Lake City that you saw.
Yeah.
So I just come with this guerrilla approach because
As it turns out, a lot of people were not in favor of the new flag. It turned into a really ugly issue up on a hill of, if you don't support the flag, you're not getting funding for anything. You won't get your bills won't be heard in committee. You will be destroyed. You will be shut down if you don't support this flag. Problem with a new flag mainly is that it's a symbol of a new Utah. And we talk about the new Utah now. We embrace immigration. We have a new flag. We embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. The flag is symbolic of all of that. Not to mention the other symbols on that flag, which there's some symbology there. The Utah is absolutely contrary to our beliefs. So it's a betrayal. And I hear that from people all the time. I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed by this process or by the government. And people, if they understood the flag, would feel betrayed by that. I ran a bill this last session to restore the old flag. But that bill would have said, okay, we're going back to our old flag, and we're putting on the ballot the new flag, and people can vote on it. Got killed in the committee. It was voted down, which was no surprise.
In the very beginning, I started off in this presentation by talking about how our flag was lame. It's going to change Utah. I really do believe that this is going to be a thing that changes Utah.
It's a scheme against the people of Utah. And I think Utah is targeted because we are a culture that typically follows leaders. We're deferential to authority. The bad actors in the country, the bad actors in the world look at Utah as a good testing place to see if they can get things passed. And that's the reason that Utah is the bluest red state. That's why we have the most left-leaning people elected. Mitt Romney, Spencer Cox are called Republicans, but are the furthest thing from Republican values that you can find. What really offends me is when I get elected officials in Utah who know what's happening. They know, they see what's happening, but rather than risk the retribution of the lieutenant governor's office, they go along with it. So as Utah grows, we become more diverse. We get, people from other states who have different ideas about government and the role of government and parents and individual rights and all those types of things. That I believe in individual rights. I believe that individuals have rights because they were born or because they were conceived, and that government's job is to protect those inalienable rights. It's what the Declaration of Independence says. It backs me up on that. And so that's a huge platform of mine, is individual rights, personhood. And we get down to that conflict, in our community and say, okay, you want to take away individual rights, guns, abort babies, all these things. You want to take away all of that in favor of the collective, and we want to preserve individual rights. And so let's have an election that decides that. And you would hope in Utah that those that value individual rights would win. But then we come back to the culture of Utah, which is a really interesting culture because we are a little bit of a collective. I mean, it's the beehive state, of all things. So we are a little bit of a hive mentality. We've embraced it. We're industrious. We're workers. We're all these things that in a communist manifesto, they would look at that and say, oh, this is a prime group of people to see if we can implement the master plan. Things are really becoming more and more black and white, and I think it's a historic time. I think we're going to have a time for choosing whether we want to have a Republican form of government or a communist form of government. And when I say communist, I mean that deliberately. It's a 21st century version of communism, but the ends are the same, the motives are the same, and we've seen this play out over and over and over, whether it's in China or other communist countries, and anyone that's experienced it will tell you you don't want to go down this path. There is hope, and the hope is that people recognize what it is that is at stake, and it's their families, it's their way of life. It's such a beautiful thing, because all through history we've had monarchies and top-down government. America was the first time when we had a government that was based on the notion that all men are created equal, and we've had wars over that. God's hand is in it. It's the truth. It's right. Everyone feels that in their heart. So that's what we're fighting for. Ultimately that's what we're fighting for.